Thank you for joining today's webinar. I am Harsha, Marketing Manager at Geospatial Media, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Today's webinar is centered around Global Geospatial Outlook Report that is produced by Geospatial Media and Communications. And this is done in partnership with 10 industry leaders, and we are very thankful for them. The webinar will also have polls, and you're encouraged to participate in the poll. The presenter for today's webinar is Ms. Anamika Das, Vice President, Market Intelligence and Business Consulting of Geospatial Media. Welcome, Anamika. Over to you.
Thanks, Harsha. And once again, welcome you all. As already informed by my colleague, today's webinar shall discuss the second on the country's Geospatial Readiness Index. And before getting into what Geospatial Readiness Index is, it is important to understand the relevance of being geospatial ready. Why does a country need to be ready geospatially? What does geospatial preparedness mean for the growth of the economy? It is globally understood that geospatial is of paramount importance. Geospatial preparedness of a country is important for it lays the foundation for the businesses and the government by underlying the realities and opportunities that are available in the nation. A high geospatial readiness leads to increased efficiency, productivity, and transparency, which leads to increase in investment and therefore more business opportunities in different industry verticals. A positive influence of geospatial to the industry verticals like agriculture, defense, or any other industry actually helps boost value of the economy and society, which ultimately contributes to the sustainable growth of an economy for a nation as a whole as well as globally. Let's have your understanding whether geospatial readiness plays a role in national development via this poll. Please answer to this poll because we would like to have your understanding on the relevance of geospatial readiness in national development goals. Thank you for giving your views. Here is the poll result. Well, understanding the importance of geospatial technology for nations' development, Geospatial Media took up a study on understanding the geospatial preparedness in a country. Far more than just ranking, I would say the index showcases insightful comparisons, evaluating why some countries are better than others and what can be done to close the gap. The index acts as a benchmark to initiate the development of geospatial in the countries selected for indexing to seize new and available opportunities that shall benefit to the society globally. So now let's understand the methodology of the study in the next slide. The first step that we took in the study was to select 50 countries, followed by identification of pillars and sub-pillars that are the key determinants for weighing the readiness of a country. An extensive primary and secondary survey was conducted, which was followed by a quantitative analysis to come to the final readiness score of each country. For entire exercise, we have interviewed 500 plus technology providers, 1,500 press releases were mapped for past 5 years, and 1,000 users were surveyed and interviewed personally. So let's check out the countries that have been selected. As is visible on the screen, 50 countries that have been chosen for indexing are geographically as well as Europe, Americas, Africa, and Middle East. And these 50 countries identified for the study represents actually 75% of the world's population and approximately 90% of the world's GDP. So let's now understand the matrix and indicators on which these countries are measured and assessed. The countries have been evaluated on the basis of 4 pillars that forms the basis of an efficient geospatial ready country that we understood as a prime factor, and these were geospatial infrastructure and policy framework, institutional capacity, geospatial industry fabric, and the user adoption level of geospatial in a country. So these four pillars which we selected are highly interdependent and continue to reinforce each other constantly. In the next slide, we shall see the sub-determinants assigned to these four pillars for detailed evaluation. While the four pillars are broad classification for evaluation, the sub-determinants of each pillar is what determines the strength and weakness of a geo-ready country. And the sub-determinants have been chosen carefully so as to make the evaluation of the pillars thorough. Let's seek from you which pillar amongst these four are important in assessing the readiness of a country. So let's take this poll and have an understanding from you on your views. Here's the poll result. So till now I was explaining you the methodology of the study. So let's now take a sneak peek on the beginners and leaders of the readiness index in terms of the four pillars determined in the report in the next few slides. Well, the first pillar, that is geospatial infrastructure and policy framework, has been evaluated on the basis of data infrastructure, positioning infrastructure of the country, the platforms and portals, open and linked data, and policy framework. In this pillar, United States, Netherlands, Denmark, Canada, and Russia leads and are the pioneers. They have a very well established geospatial infrastructure and an enabling policy framework. The emerging nations rank the lowest in infrastructure and policy readiness. The nations are still setting up their own spatial data infrastructure and have no satellite capabilities of their own. So these countries lack an adequate legal framework as well and would need considerable time to develop and implement relevant policies. The second pillar, that is institutional capacity, has been evaluated on the basis of the geospatial knowledge dissemination courses and the incubation centers in each country. So in this pillar as well, United States leads the index, followed closely by United Kingdom, Germany, Canada, and Russia. The reason that developed countries lead the index is because these countries have exceptional institutions, provide a fertile ground for startups, and thus leading to increased incubation. So let's have a third poll to understand what, according to you, is dominant sub-determinants of institutional capacity that helps play a role in measuring readiness. So the poll results are on your screen right now. Coming to the third pillar, leading the third pillar, that is the user adoption pillar, are United States, United Kingdom, and the Netherlands. And these countries are leaders because the enterprise users in these countries have been using geospatial data for more than 2 decades now, having imbibed geospatial into their workflow management and considered geospatial as an important catalyst in their growth story altogether. So all these factors have actually led them to have a higher ranking in this pillar. And also geospatial is being adopted in every industry vertical possible, leading to a positive contribution to the economy as a whole. The beginner countries like Costa Rica, Czech Republic, Zimbabwe, etc. are lagging in the user adoption level because of the fact that they lack in skilled manpower and financial resources to adopt this at the system integration or enterprise level altogether. Lastly, leading the final pillar, the industry fabric, are the United States, United Kingdom, and Germany. The geospatial industry ecosystem in these countries provide comprehensive products, services, and solutions to continuous innovations that we have seen. However, a huge divide is visible between the leaders and the beginner countries in this pillar altogether. The reason being, most of the beginner countries majorly outsource their product, what is data, content, and services from developed nations. And these economies are still struggling to establish a well-functioning geospatial industry ecosystem uh, and drive the final readiness score for the 50 countries. From the final ranking chart, the conclusion that can be drawn that the developed countries are leading the index, for they are also ranking high in the 4 pillars, and most of the developing countries like India, Brazil, etc. are in the middle ground of the readiness index. And these countries are steadily racing forward in developing their geospatial capabilities, while the emerging economies are at the bottom, though they have a potential to go up higher in the coming years. This slide shows us the top 5 leaders of the readiness index, along with 5 countries, each in the middle ground and at the beginners level. And in the next slides, we'll deeply focus on few of these countries and the key highlights. As seen, United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Canada, and Germany are leaders in Geospatial Readiness Index. We shall now throw light on the key points of the top 3 countries of the Readiness Index. Coming to United States, it is rich in topographic data set, has its own Earth observation capabilities, a wide RTK network, and its own augmentation system. The growth of the geospatial industry in the country can be attributed to the support provided by strong research and development institutions in the country. And the geospatial uptake is also imbibed in the workflow management. Also, it is leading in the industry fabric from the point of view that it provides comprehensive products, services, and solutions through continuous innovation. And with no surprise that United States ranked first in all the 4 pillars, and therefore it is number 1 in the readiness index. Following the United States closely is the United Kingdom, where location is a key component such that geospatial is being adopted in every industry segment for both civil and government use. And the country has abundant number of universities that offer rich and diverse geospatial courses and attract international students. The country also performs exceptionally well in all pillars, especially with respect to institutional capacity and the user adoption of this technology, where it ranks actually number 2, followed by industry fabric, where it ranks number 3. Netherlands takes the 3rd position, for it offers rich and diverse scales of topographic and satellite imagery data set. The country is also one of the first to establish cloud-based web portal for real-time satellite data access. And since we know that Netherlands is part of European Union, it follows the INSPIRE directives and its policies. The institutional capacity of the country is also class apart. So the country has a very strong geospatial infrastructure and policy framework supporting its readiness. Also, because in recent years, geospatial uptake has increased in all industry segments of the country ranks 3rd in the user adoption pillar. Moving on the middle ground level, economies like India, New Zealand, Poland, Brazil are the driving force behind the growth of this industry. A paradigm shift by using spatial data in various industry verticals. Coming to the country in the middle ground, India. India ranks 23rd in Geospatial Readiness Index. The Indian geospatial industry is actually witnessing a tremendous opportunity and is on the verge of major transformation. The industry is striding ahead with its enterprising spirit, but the country ranks at 15 in institutional capacity, and because of the growing service industry, it ranks at 19 in industry capacity. However, owing to poor positioning infrastructure in the country and lack of well-defined policy at a national level, India performs poorly in the geospatial infrastructure and policy framework, where it is ranking 36th. Where there are leaders, there are some countries that are born to be the beginners level. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Kyrgyz Republic are some countries that have only very recently initiated the process of setting up a proper geospatial infrastructure. And these countries are in the process of laying strong guidelines to formulate an action strategy for the growth of geospatial in these regions. Bangladesh ranks at 49 in geospatial preparedness. The country initiated the process of setting up an SDI very recently, that is in July 2016. And similar to all beginners countries that we have seen on the index, Bangladesh too has only recently initiated the process of setting up the geospatial infrastructure and also drafting guidelines for the growth of this industry. So the country ranks at the bottom of 6 in all the 4 pillars of assessment and ranks last in the industry favorite. In the conclusion from the above slides and the study per se, I would say it can be said that the next few years will be definitive for the geospatial industry as a whole, and the role it will play in the country's growth, definitely. And there is a unique opportunity in utilization of the opportunities available in the country if we are geospatially ready for undertaking that opportunity. So the geospatial readiness matters because it discusses the core aspect which shall help the decision maker to understand their relative strength and weaknesses with respect to this industry at a more granular level. With this, I would like to thank you all for participating in the webinar. And we look now to take questions with respect to the index and also request you to provide your feedbacks on the same. And you can reach me on the following email, namika@geospatialmedia.net or Twitter at dasanamika. So I await any questions to take it up.
Thank you, Anamika. We are waiting for the questions to come in. Meanwhile, why does India rank so low in the geospatial infrastructure and policy framework?
Well, before we understand that why the rank of India is so low in geospatial infrastructure and policy framework, it is important to understand first the factors that has been taken for determining this uh, pillar, like topographic and geodetic data that was there, the scales at which it is available, the SDI framework in the country, the platforms and portals that are available, what stage they are in, and the characteristics of data in terms of their consistency and timeliness. All these factors were taken into consideration for understanding the geospatial infrastructure and policy framework of any country. So now let us understand this from the point of view of the scenario in India. If we see the scenario in India, the geodetic infrastructure prevalent in the country compared to the rest of the world is far below when it is compared to the size of the country or the area of the country. That is the number of geodetic infrastructure that is actually required. India is not fulfilling that number. And also the satellite positioning infrastructure is in India is yet to become a fully operational system. When we come to the data infrastructure, that is the topographic data that is available, what matters more is the scale at which it is available, the completeness and the consistency or the timeliness. So we still have to have India mapped at a scale which is at a large scale for having a kind of application or applied to the applications like utility or planning. So all these factors when taken together so makes India rank low in geospatial infrastructure and policy framework, which is I would say a kind of eye-opener for the Indian policymakers as well as the concerned stakeholders to have a kind of priority action on these things.
Okay, so we have certain questions coming up on how did geospatial media actually assess the various pillars, and how did you measure it? How did we arrive at measuring the geospatial readiness index? What do you say on that, Anamika?
Sorry, can you repeat the question once again?
So, how did we arrive at measuring geospatial readiness index? How do you answer that question?
Okay. What we have done, the methodology of the study that we have done includes extensive quantitative analysis, which wherein we have used the primary and secondary survey strategies. So what we have done, we have first identified the 4 pillars of the readiness index that we thought is an influential factor for any country, for this actually industry to thrive. So those 4 pillars were first identified, and accordingly some secondary and primary surveys were done. For the primary survey, the study has been conducted in terms of identifying the status of geospatial data infrastructure, policy framework, the image resolutions, etc. And similarly, a primary interaction and sectors, as well as the policymakers, the stakeholders of the like NMAs, SDI agencies, and other agencies that are involved in infrastructure building or policy framework. All these were like interviewed on a primary basis, as well as some secondary data were collected to understand like the policy framework. So we have done a detailed study on the various policy papers that are present in different countries, and tried to bring it a kind of parameter to it, that okay, for the policy framework, these are the important criteria that a country should understand or have it on as a framework, and those kind of assessments were there.
Okay, so can you also explain about the institutional capacity pillar, and how was the assessment basically done in terms of institutional capacity and educational capacity of each country?
Geospatial industry, we should understand that needs a geo-intelligent workforce, which should be well versed with geospatial domain. And I would say that not only geospatial domain, but also the vertical areas that they are working in. So there has to be a kind of strong balance between the workforce having an intelligence of geospatial domain and the domain in which it is applied for. So to evaluate this institutional capacity uh, for these countries, we have assessed it through business incubation, the fundamental sciences, the professional education, and the interdisciplinary application courses and the vocational courses that a country provides. So the number of institutions and courses were mapped and assessed through these parameters. So of which we felt that business incubation is a crucial for creating synergies and aims to encourage students having a kind of entrepreneurial mindset and actually commercialize to what is happening in the research sector. So all these factors were kept in mind when these 5 different aspects or sub pillars were taken into consideration.
Okay, so we have a very detailed question like from Ayman Salim. Does online education or online is online education effective in the field of remote sensing? I think Ayman, we will answer this question to you via email. This is a very detailed question, so we'll have to dig into the data and provide an answer to you on that. So there is a question from Pranav Srivastav saying that are there any considerable efforts being made by Government of India to incorporate policies, geospatial policies, I guess. Can you give examples on the policies aspects?
Uh, well, Government of India has been like working in having a kind of policy framework, and some of the efforts has been taken to that direction. But few of them are already in the public domain, and a few they are working on, which is not in the public domain, and we are not actually to disclose those kind of work that they are doing. So if you're asking at the national level, yes, India hasn't yet come up with any policies at the national level. All the policies that are right now are at the technological level, or some policies are at the organizational or the industry specific policies, wherein they have specified that they need to have a kind of implementation of these technologies. So, but they are really very few.
So there's a one question coming in on policy framework, actually policies, uh, very variety of policies, right from infrastructure, mapping. Now UAVs are coming up, open data. How did you actually make the assessment?
Yeah, very good question indeed. while assessing policy framework, we try to understand 5 or 6 factors into the policy at the first level. One is whether the country is having a national geospatial policy or national geospatial act, wherein all the different policies or overarching kind of policy is there or not. Then we try to assess that with absence of a national policy, what kind of in the technology specific policies are there, like whether the country is having a separate surveying and mapping policies, whether they have UAV policies or data policies. After assessing all these as a kind of number of policies that they are having, we also try to understand what kind of standards they are implementing, what kind of overarching like in the policy framework. Suppose there is surveying and mapping policy, so is there any kind of consideration that what kind of scale of map that they should produce, what should be the period of updation of those maps, what kind of details that has been given into those policies. So that kind of things were assessed when we try to assess the policy framework of the country.
Monica has a question. She's asking on process of normalization. Monica, can you be more specific on when you mean by normalization? While Monica gives her clarification to the question, we'll move on to the next question. So someone is asking, like, is this the first time ever this activity has been done, and do you plan to do this activity in the future? Anamika?
Yes, definitely, Harsha. Like this is the first time the study has been done and conducted, but we are planning to bring out the second edition of this with a bigger scope and study, and the feedback that we have got in terms of the determinants. So we'll even increase those scopes and try to assess that in our second edition. So definitely we are going to expand the study in terms of geographical as well as determinants as well as entire scope and methodology of the.
Okay, somebody is asking about the enterprise level adoption when it comes to the pillar of user adoption level. What you say on that?
Well, when we say enterprise level adoption, we know that in big enterprises, there are different departments that are working. So geospatial can cut across each department of that organization and kind of integrated into the CRM, or other systems of that organization to give it a kind of, I would say, more return on investment in terms of planning or implementation or delivery or monitoring. So these kind of usage at the cutting across all the departments of an organization is enterprise level adoption.
Okay. So another question coming in is was there any consideration about the scale of data for applications such as
Yes.
urban planning?
Yes, it was the scale of data was taken into consideration. Different scales on which the data is provided for that particular application, and try to assess that if a country is providing an urban planning data at a scale of 1 is to 2000, and some other countries the data is available at 1 is to 10,000, so the 1 is to 2000 country gets a higher ranking into that. A kind of number or weight that we have given gets a higher weight.
Thank you, Anamika. We are closing the questions thing, and I think Monica has done a clarification or has another question. So she has this question: how do you translate the information from reports and interviews into quantitative process? That's her question.
Yeah, we had a kind of questionnaire we had developed, and we had talked to the stakeholders with those questions, and that were actually like done as a kind of assessment for these study. Coming to the reports and interviews, we try to assess it through like quantitative as well as qualitative study both.
Okay, and Monica is also open to do a collaboration, and she's ready to discuss further because her organization ERSC is doing similar studies, is what she says. Thank you very much, Monica, for your offer. Our team will be in touch with you soon. And thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for being on hold, and we really appreciate your time. And there are certain complaints coming up on the audio problems. We really apologize for that. We'll take it up this issue with the webinar provider, and also see how can we not repeat these kind of things in the future. This webinar recording will also be made available tomorrow, and all the registered attendees will receive the link with the to the recorded webinar, and we'll also send you a presentation for this for people who have asked separately in the emails. Thank you for joining, and we hope to meet you in the next webinar. Geospatial World webinars will be continuing every month, and all the participants in the current webinar will receive an email on our future webinars. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.